All right. Aloha, it's Debbie Zimmerman, and I'm coming to you live from Honolulu. And today I have a special guest coming from Utah, Heather Woody. And Heather is a mom of 3 sons, but we're going to talk about her youngest son, Caleb, who is diagnosed with high-functioning autism. So Heather, would you tell us a little bit about your son, Caleb, and some of the issues that he confronted early on?
Yes. So early on, he had several things going on. So the first thing that he had was it's called echolalia. So echolalia, basically, he could recite things and give things back to you as far as like he could watch a movie and hours later, he'd still be reciting that same movie. Mm-hmm. And it was great until you wanted to have a discussion with him, but the only thing he could do was recite the movie back to you. And if you tried to pull him out of it, it generally resulted in an hour-long tantrum.
Oh, no.
Like a physically violent, just put him in the room and hope they don't break something tantrum. So he was diagnosed at 3.5 with high functioning autism. We kind of were lucky, if you will, because his 2 older brothers were diagnosed autistic. And so we recognized the symptoms early on. And they didn't diagnose him earlier, mainly because they wanted to make sure he wasn't just mimicking behaviors of his older brothers. Mm-hmm. So once the echolalia started, they basically said, yeah, that's not something that you can mimic as far as the autistic behaviors. And so that was where we started our journey with figuring out what was going on and making sure that he got the treatment that he needed. So early on, he had 6 hours of ABA therapy, which is pretty typical with kids with autism. And we also, because of his, he also had ADHD, which is very, very common for it to be comorbid with autism. So because of the ADHD and the autism, we put him on stimulants, which is the only thing we knew at that point. So he had 6 hours of ABA therapy, and then he also had the medications that he was on.
And how did that work for you?
It worked okay as far as getting, his attention was better. However, the side effect, if you will, of 6 hours of ABA. So the way that ABA works, basically, they train them to. I'm trying to figure out how to describe ABA. So basically, they train them to want to do certain behaviors by taking away what they want until they do the behavior that you want. Then they give them back what they want. And so by the time he came home to us after 6 hours of intensive ABA therapy, he didn't want to do anything we wanted him to do because he'd been doing that pattern for 6 hours. Which then resulted in just a lot of rigid behavior patterns of, you know what, you're going to do it my way or you're not going to do it at all. So when he got into school, what happened then was that basically a lot of the kids would struggle with being friends with him because that was his behavior pattern was, you're going to do it my way or we're not going to do it at all. And so it also got into struggles with teachers of, I'm not going to do the work that you want me to do because you're not going to give me what I want,
Mm-hmm.
even if I do it. So he got put on a behavior program
Mm-hmm.
where he, every single day, they would send home these behavior programs of how many, he had a score of out of 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so even on the medications, even, with the behavior pattern, a good day was about 5 out of 12 score. So it was kind of rough.
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
So we opted to move him to some different, instead of on medications, we found a natural energy drink that had, green tea extract and had a lot of vitamin B12, which is something that commonly they recommend for kids, or not necessarily for kids, but people with ADHD for functioning, is, a lot of B12 and the caffeine, which was in the green tea extract. So that's what we moved to. We still didn't see a lot of really great results, but at least it was better than medications that we saw. So at least then he didn't have the long-term, the one other thing I forgot to mention was that because of the stimulants that he was on, he didn't sleep at night.
Oh.
So we tried melatonin, but the downfall of melatonin is that then they kind of get used to it. And it can mess with their serotonin during the day. I didn't know that until later, but it messes with their serotonin, and so they struggle even more during the day. So
what happened next then? Did you get introduced to Amari? Is that when you got introduced to Amari?
So we got introduced to Amari about 2 years ago, which at the time when we were introduced to Amari, there were no kids products. There were only the adult products. And so we switched from the energy drink that we were using to the Energy Plus. Very, very dear friends of ours had watched us for a few years struggle with our family and brought it to us and said, you know what, this could be an answer. Give it a shot. Let's see what happens. So we actually jumped right in, became wellness partners, bought the launch pack, and started going with the products on our own. So with him, we started with the Energy and the adult GBX. So a half dose of the adult GBX because he was only 13 at that point. So we didn't want to put him on a full adult dose because we didn't want to do that. So, and he didn't like the taste of the adult fundamentals. So we didn't do the adult fundamentals. And then from that, just from the Energy and the Vita GBX, the adult Vita GBX that he was taking, he went to where he still had a behavior plan, but his behavior plan, he was getting about 8 out of 12.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
From 5 out of 12 on a good day to 8 out of 12 on a good day.
Yeah. 50% gain. That's great.
Yeah, 50% gain. I was happy to take that. It meant less emails from the teachers about behaviors and how can we help him and that kind of stuff. And then a year ago when Amari introduced the kids fundamentals, we put him on the kids fundamentals and the kids GBX. And he actually all on his own figured out that if he took it twice a day that he felt better.
Great.
And so he stayed on the Energy, just he needed that little bit of boost of because of the ADHD with the caffeine. It helps them focus a little bit better. And I felt better about it because it wasn't typical caffeine where they have that rise and that crash. So it was definitely nice to have something that I felt a little bit better as a mom giving him, knowing that the fundamentals was balancing out his gut, that the fundamentals was helping with his anxiety, and the the anxiety kind of surfaced as he went through puberty, which also happens frequently with kids with autism, is that as they go through puberty and their hormones change, they kind of start that anxiety portion. So he then is now in high school, and by adding the kids' mood, he's got the kids' mood, he's got the kids' fundamentals, and he's still taking energy. And the kids' GBX, he now is off his behavior plan.
No behavior plan. That means you must have seen a 12. You must have seen a 12 somewhere or gotten a number of 12s.
Yeah, a few 12s. And then also he went from junior high to high school. So, when you go from junior high to high school, you hope they mature, but you don't always know if they're going to mature. So that's kind of what we've seen with Amari.
And how's high school going for him then? Is he doing okay on your Amari protocol?
He does pretty well. He still struggles some, just because of the fact that it hasn't taken away the autistic behaviors by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly by working with him and helping him with the social skills, and then also the Amari helps with the flexible thinking, so that he's more willing to adjust. So it's made a big difference for him, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. It helps him be the best version of himself.
Yes.
Or a better version of himself. Yeah.
And he's very, very goal-oriented and driven.
Oh, good. So that's great.
It's been really good for him.
Yeah, I love how he took the initiative to figure out that he needed the kids' fundamentals in the morning and in the evening, and then redose himself. That's so it sounds like you have a pretty compliant kid. Did he adjust to the kids' fundamentals easily, or was there a transition there too?
There was a little bit of a transition. He the flavor wasn't the favorite. And so he actually, that's another thing. He's one of those kids that he wants to do it himself. So he figured out that, hey, if I take the energy and the fundamentals together, that it tastes better. Yeah. So he mixes the energy and the fundamentals, and now the kid's mood, he mixes them all together and drinks it down in the morning, and then takes the fundamentals at night. So there was a transition time of I don't really like the taste of this, but I'll give it a shot and do it. And so it's definitely made a big difference for him.
And obviously he must be feeling it if he takes the initiative to mix this concoction every day and take it repeatedly.
That's a blessing to me. It's like, it makes my life easier, because not every teenager would be willing to do that themselves.
Yeah. And when he goes to college, he's got to do that. Mom's not going to be there to hand it to him, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So what about you and your husband? Now, you said you had the lunch pack. So did you start taking products yourself, and how did that go?
Yes. So myself and my husband, I myself had mono when I was younger, in my younger years. And so one of the side effects of having mono as a kid is that you kind of develop almost like a fibromyalgia type syndrome as you get older. And so I myself take all the products. I take the fundamentals, I take the Vita GBX, I take the mood, I take the sleep, I take the relief, probiotics, and digestive when I need it. But on a regular basis, I do take also the hemp. just because it's made a big difference in my pain, big difference. I went in my anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made a big difference. I have never felt this well, honestly.
Wow, that's exciting to hear, because the
Yeah.
Hemp GBX is a new product for Amari, only released actually this month or last month. So
Last month, yeah.
yeah, so I'm excited to hear that you're having that kind of result with it.
Yeah, it's been great. Definitely decreased when I felt great taking the relief and the mood, but the hemp definitely makes a big difference with my pain.
That's great.
So,
And everybody's got to find the product mix that works for them.
totally.
So what about your husband?
My husband has anxiety and depression and ADHD as well. Surprise, surprise, when you have 3 kids with it, it's not a surprise when you have a parent with it. So,
you have to start looking in the mirror.
Exactly. So when we started Amari 2 years ago, he was on 2 antidepressants and a stimulant. And with the Amari products, he's been able to come off the stimulant and off of one of the antidepressants, and the second antidepressant, his dose is in half.
Wow, that is fantastic.
It's definitely made a big difference for our family, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been such an encouraging conversation with you, and I really appreciate you sharing so candidly for the benefit of other people who may be listening. Before we close the interview, is there anything else that you'd like to say or share?
Just as for those moms out there who have kids with autism or kids with any kind of struggles, biggest thing that I would tell you is be their advocate, but at the same time also be your own advocate. So a lot of times when you go to the traditional medical community, they want to push pills on you very, very quickly. We didn't know any difference, and so we started our kids on that when they were very young. But, had I known, I probably would have dug into it and done a whole lot more of the natural things. So just be your own advocate. Just because the doctor says just push just pills doesn't mean that you have to.
Yeah.
So just be your own advocate and be your kid's advocate.
And now with the internet, it's so wonderful because we can do our own research and we can be a better educated consumer. And there's so much out there now on the gut microbiome. And
Yes.
Wow.
So.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And thank you too for tuning in. And until next time, malama pono, take care. Aloha. Thanks, Heather.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.